All right, so here we go with 5.5. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so it says write the angles in order from smallest to largest. Now, I can't find the angles, but that's okay. That's not what it asked for. We're going to write them from smallest to largest. And of course, we know that we're looking at this triangle. What they give us are the sides of this triangle. So based on the sides, we can we can order the angles. So across from the largest side will be the largest angle, and across from the smallest side will be the smallest angle. So we have the smallest, we're going from smallest to largest. So the smallest side is this 40.5. And so opposite it would be angle R. So we know angle R is the smallest. And again, don't mess up on your smallest to largest. And then the one in the middle is your 45, right? So QR is the medium side. So the medium angle is going to be angle P. And finally, the largest side, 57, will lead us to angle Q. And of course, the opposite is true, right? In other words, we can actually have, if we know the angles. And again, I would recommend always sort of finding all the angles that we can in here. And of course, not of course, but hopefully we see this as a triangle with two angles in here. And those two angles, we can sort of, using those two angles, I can find the third angle. Let's put it that way. So if we add them up, we get 85, which makes this one 95 in here. And now we know that that's the biggest, I don't know, that's the biggest angle. So opposite it is going to be the biggest side. Okay, now it does say shortest to longest, so let's do that. So let's start with shortest. The shortest or smallest angle is 39. So opposite that will be my shortest side. So that's going to be ZY would be my shortest side. There we go. I don't know what's wrong with this. So that's fine. And so we have the next shortest is 46. So opposite that's going to be XZ. And then opposite that to the largest angle. So the largest angle is 95. So the largest side would be XY. And honestly, the better way to put these would probably be to, instead of having commas, is use symbols. So I'm just going to say that this is less than that, which is less than that, and this is less than that, which is less than that. All right, so it's sort of in order from smallest to largest there. Now it says tell whether a triangle can have sides of the given length. So we know that every pair of sides of a triangle has to add up to larger than that remaining third side. So there's the shortcut if you have all three sides is just to look at the two smallest. Okay, so look at the two smallest sides, add them up, and they have to be larger than the remaining sides. So in this case, our two smallest are 4 and 7. 4 and 7 is 11. Is 11 bigger than 10? Yes, it is. So we're good. We can make a triangle. 2 plus 9 is 11. Is 11 bigger than 12? No, it is not. So we have no triangle. Okay. 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. Is 7 bigger than 6? Yes, it is. So we're at Triangle Town. All right. Now in this case they don't put them in order, right? So we have to make sure that that's okay. So 1.1 and 1.7 are smaller. So we add them up and we get 2.8. Is 2.8 larger than 3? No, it is not. So we got no triangle. We couldn't make a triangle out of those lengths. All right, and this is sort of one we talked about where we said if we're given two sides, we got to find the range, and so it's going to be an inequality here. So find the range. And again, the easiest way is to take these two numbers, right? So we have 12 and 8, and we add them up, right? So 12 plus 8 is going to give me the maximum, right? So we know that our side has to be less than them together, which is going to be 20. But also, if these were the two biggest sides, then we would have to know that essentially the difference between them. So 12 minus 8 is going to be sort of the minimum there. So we know we have to have, x needs to be greater than, x has to be greater than the difference, which is 4. So between 4 and 20, and so we'd write, 4 is less than x, which is less than 20 here. And so in this case, we have 16 and 16. And 16 minus 16, right? So we find the upper limit it's just got to be less than 32, but it also has to be bigger than 0. So we know 0 is less than x, which is less than 32. That's our range right there. we have 11.4. So I'm just going to do 12. Let's do it in this order. Plus 11.4. All right, so we know x has to be less than 23.4, and we know that 12 minus 11.4 is just 0.6. So x has to be greater than 0.6. And we'll get rid of this down here. I did it over there. And so we write our inequality as 0.6 is less than x, which is less than 23.4. Essentially, x has to be between 0.6 or 0.6 is fine, and 23.4. All right, perfect. Moving on. It's not taking so long at all. Same type of thing as before. Write the angles from the smallest to largest. So the smallest angle will be opposite the smallest side, which in this case our smallest side is KL, which means opposite it is going to be angle J. So we'd say angle J is less than angle, well, the medium side is going to be JK. So it's going to be, no, I'm not kidding. It's just KJ. It's across from L. I'll tell you why I was laughing in a second. But then our largest side, of course, was going to be 62.6, which is JL, which is across from K. I just was saying that I was going to put these as a different color specifically to avoid this. But look, it's less than angle and L. It's like a whole bunch of, it's like less than angle L. And it's like, oh no, what is that? Anyway. Okay, so write the sides in order from shortest to longest. We have 90. We know that that's 90. That's 66. That must mean that this is 24 for them to add to 90. So the shortest side is going to be SR because it's across from the smallest angle. So we could say SR would be less than the medium side, which would be opposite the medium angle. Angle R is the medium angle. So ST has to be our medium side, and then finally our last side is RT. I know that would be actually the longest angle, the longest side anyway, because the hypotenuse of a right triangle, so it would have to be. All right. Okay, so we have tell whether we can have sides of a triangle. Remember, we add up the two smallest to make sure that those two small sides are larger, larger, has to be larger than the last one. So 6 and 8 are the two smallest. So is 16 greater than 15? Yes, it is. So triangle. The two smallest are here. Is 32 greater than 32? No, it's not. No triangle. In this case, the two smallest are 5.8 and 5.8, which is 11.6. Sorry, 11.6. Is 11.6 greater than 11.9? No, it's not. So no triangle. In this case, our two smallest are 41.9 and 62.5. That is going to be 104.3. 104.3. Is that bigger than 103? Yes, it is. So triangle. Boom. Exclamation point. Triangle time. All right. So again, we were given the length of these two. We got to find their possible lengths. Again, not so bad. We're saying, okay, 19 plus 4, 19 minus 4. So 19 plus 4 gives me my maximum. So x has to be less than these together, which is 23. X has to be greater than these sort of when I subtract them. That's the difference between them. That was the word I was looking for. Slate. So we know it's got to be, we know that our side has to be between 15 and 23. So 15 has to be less than x, which is less than 23. All right, we have 28 plus 23 and 28 minus 23. So we get 5 and we get 51. So it's got to be less than 51, but greater than 5. So we have, that's what we'll write. We'll say 5 has to be less than x, which is less than 51. That's our range. X is between those numbers. All right, in this case, we would say 9.2 plus 3.8 and 9.2 minus 3.8. And so 9.2 minus 3.8 is 5.4. So I know it's got to be bigger, less than 5.4, right? That's the maximum it can be. And then 9.2 minus 3.8. Actually, sorry, I made a mistake. It's 9.2 plus 3.8 is 13, which I was doing the other one. Okay, redo, and just what I wanted exactly to go all the way to the top for some reason. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's see. No more eraser. Okay. So it was, 13. So x has to be less than 13, but it has to be greater than 5.4 when I subtract them. So 5.4 has to be less than x, which has to be less than 13. All right. Now here's where we get a little trickier, but the only difference is that we need to put we need to put them from shortest to longest. But in this case, we're dealing with angles, but I don't know what the angles are. But I do know that I can find them, right? In other words, I know all the angles in a triangle are going to have to add to 180, or in this case, actually, that the two acute angles in a right triangle have to be complementary. So I know that 2x, this angle, and 5x minus 1, this angle, have to equal 90 in this case. So this is going to get me x, which is going to give me the angles, which means I can classify them. So there's a few sort of intermediate steps in here. So we get 7x, so minus 1 equals 90. So we get 91 equals 7x. And so we divide 91 by 7, and we get 13. So x is 13, which means this right here, this angle is going to be 2 times 13, or 26 degrees. And this is going to be 64. So that would be 13 times 5. Minus 1 is 64. Okay. Or, of course, subtract from 90 to get those two. So now we can officially sort of know each of the angles, so we can know that the shortest side would be across from the smallest angle, which is 26. So BA, or AB, I'll put, right, is going to be smallest, and then the medium side is across from the medium angle, which is going to be across from angle B, which is the medium one, is going to be AC. And then finally, the longest side is going to be, of course, our hypotenuse, which is going to be BC. And so I'll just come in and say that is less than. I have some colors. Why not use them? All right, this is the same thing. The difference is these aren't complementary. All three of these have to be. They have to add to 180. So in other words, I would know that 4x minus 5 plus 10x minus 2. Oh, it's 4.5x. Plus 10x minus 2 equals, plus the third angle F is going to be 5x minus 8. And together, all those have to be 180. So let's add all these up, all these x's. It looks like we have negative 13 values, and then the x is 15, 19.5. X equals 180. And then we get 19.5x equal, 180. 193, and so I hope this is even. 193 divided by, oops, I put 192, that won't do. 193 divided by 19.5 is not even. Let me double check that I did that right. There's a minus 2 in there as well. Forgot that. So it's actually 15 here. So it actually is one. Oh, that was nice. Okay, so it's actually 195. It's possible that it wouldn't be even, but of course this makes it nice and 10. Okay, so now we can plug them back in. So we get 50 minus 2 is 48. 100 minus 2 is 98. That's what I meant. 98 degrees, boy band of the 90s. We get 50 minus 8 is 42. We get 45 minus 5 is 40. We add them all up, we do get 180, so that's all good. So the smallest side is going to be opposite the shortest angle, the smallest angle, which is angle D. So opposite that is EF. So we could say EF, right, is going to be less than the medium one, which would be this 42-degree angle. So ED is opposite it. Bigger sides, opposite bigger angles, right? So the biggest angle is angle E, and so DF is going to be the remaining side there. And again, I'll just put these less than symbols in there because it's shortest to longest. Now, again, I could ask, or anyone could ask for longest to shortest. Make sure you listen up and make sure you pay attention to that. All right, so finally, we have this last page. So Now we're just sort of comparing them. So if I'm looking at QS and PS, let me just find these angles real quick, and that way we can easily sort of figure out where this is. So we know that this is 51 in here. And then 78 plus 51, right? That's going to be 129. Subtract from 180. And so we get 51 here. Okay. So right away, I hopefully recognize that these are both 51, which means that these are both congruent, which means the angles, the sides opposite them are going to be congruent. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so QS and PS. Well, QS is opposite 75, and PS is opposite 54. So QS is going to be bigger than PS because it's opposite the larger angle, and they're part of the same triangle. I can compare them because they're part of the same triangle. All right, PQ and QS. Well, PQ is opposite the 51, and QS is opposite 75. So QS is bigger, so PQ is less than. QS and QR. So QS is opposite 51, QR is opposite 78 in the same triangle, so that's going to be less than. QS is smaller. Yeah. And then QS and RS, well, those are equal because it's isosceles. PQ and RS. PQ, RS. Okay, so this is tricky because what we have to look at is because RS and QS are the same, I'm just going to compare PQ to QS, right? So I know that PQ has to be less than RS because QS and RS are the same thing. So while normally you can't actually compare sort of two sides based on their angles as part of two different triangles, in this case we can because we know something about them. We know that this side RS is the same as QS, and QS is part of this triangle. QS is part of both triangles. RS is part of one. But either way, we can say PQ. We already knew PQ is less than QS, right? And QS and QS and RS are the same thing. So there we go. So RS and PS. Well, we know PS is less than QS. So RS is going to be the same as QS, and QS is bigger than PS, so RS has to be bigger than PS. Hopefully we follow that. Okay. Now we're doing the same thing, but with angles here. We have all the sides, so we're okay. I'm going to mark these congruent. Why not? So if those are congruent, these are congruent as well. So we can I'm going to mark the congruent angles, right? These are isosceles triangles, so the base angles are congruent. This is an isosceles triangle, so the base angles are going to be congruent here. Okay, so ABE, so this angle is opposite 6, and BEA is opposite 4, so this ABE is going to be bigger than BEA. CBE, and they're part of the same triangle, so that's okay. CBE is this angle, and CBE and CEB. Well, this is opposite 7. This is opposite 5. So this one's going to be bigger. CBE is going to be greater. DCE. DCE is opposite DEC. Actually, DCE and DEC. Those are the same. We already marked them as congruent because they're base angles of an isosceles triangle. DCE. DCE. So this angle and CDE. Well, this angle is opposite 5. This one's opposite 7, so we know that angle D is going to be bigger, so this is going to be less than that one. ABE, which is this one, and EAB, so this angle is opposite 6, this angle is opposite 7, so this is going to be less. So AB is going to be less than that angle. EBC, and ECB are going to be the congruent ones because they're the base angles of an isosceles triangle. Killing it. Okay. Lengths of two sides of a triangle are 3 feet and 8 feet, which could be the length. So then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add them to get 8. We're going to subtract them to get 2. So we know that our side has to be between those two, right? So could it be 3? Yes. Could it be 8? No. Could it be 15? No. Could it be 16? No. So the only one it could be is that one. Okay. And it couldn't be 8 again because it can't be. It's less than, not less than or equal to. So which statement about this is false? Again, we're looking here. We're probably going to be dealing with sides and angles. So let's find that missing angle first. And then that way we can make sure that we know all the angles and we can figure out what the last one is sort of just based on that. So we add them up, we get, let's see, that's 117. And so we end up with, this is 63. So now we can sort of make some statements. So is GH, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark them real quick. So this is smallest, so I'm going to make that the smallest side. And again, this is not necessarily, just because it has fewer amount of congruency marks doesn't necessarily mean that it's smaller. But this is the way that, in this case, this is the way I'm marking it, just so I can tell quickly. Okay, so based on the medium, large side. Okay, so is GH less than GJ? That is true. GH plus HJ has to be less than GJ. GH plus GJ has to be less than HJ. Don't two sides of a triangle always have to be greater than the third side? So that looks false to me. Angle H is greater than angle J. That is true. It's scalene. That's true. All the angles are different. So the size will be different. So that's true. That's true. And this one you could actually tell without even doing the calculations that I did. Because two sides of a triangle have to be larger than the third side. Okay. It says in this triangle RST. So let's go ahead and say RST. It says that S is 92, which is the longest side of it. Well, we can't determine which. Actually, no, we can determine. Strike that, reverse it. Because if they give you just one angle, that is, if they just gave you one, right, and they said, oh, this is 42 degrees, you couldn't really tell which one's the longest. You could tell that it wouldn't be this one, but you wouldn't know which one of these would be bigger than 42. They both can't be less than 42, so 42 can't be the biggest. But we wouldn't know like what this one or this one. But in this case, this is an obtuse angle. There can only be one obtuse angle in a triangle, which means these have to be less than 92, which means the longest side has to be RT. So while it doesn't give you that much, now what you don't know is which is the second largest side or the smallest side. I don't know that, but I do know the longest because I know the biggest angle has to be this obtuse one. The largest side has to be the one opposite of it. All right, cool. Let's do 5.6 next.